Today is a very significant day, for it marks the 1-year anniversary since my wife passed away from cancer. And today we go to the cemetery to have a graveside service and lay her ashes into the ground. I want to talk in this video a little bit about loss, because loss is something that comes into all of our lives at one time or another. And I want to talk about my journey with loss. And the point that I want to make in this video is that loss does not need to be the end of the story. And I want to talk about how that has become true for me this last year. Whether you have experienced loss in your past that maybe you're still dealing with and still grieving, whether you're in the middle of something right now that has rocked your world and taken you down to a low point of sadness, or whether you need to prepare for the losses in your life that are inevitable, that are ahead of you. I want these words to encourage you and at least give you one person's story of how I dealt with my loss this last year. And there's 3 things that I did this last year that I really found helped me to not allow loss to be the end of my story. The first thing that I did was that I grieved thoroughly. What I realized as soon as Vicky passed away was I have no idea what I'm doing. So like I do with all things, I decided I need to become a student of grief. I need to learn all I can from others who have been down this road, who knew what I didn't know and could teach me and help me on my journey. One of the writers that I came across fairly early was a Stoic philosopher named Seneca, who wrote these letters to grieving friends and family. And in one of these letters, he talked about these 3 parts of healthy grief. He talked about you need the consolation of friends, you need the reading of good books, and you need the passage of time. And I thought to myself, I can do that. So I found friends and these empathetic witnesses that I could tell my story to, and I helped that process happen. I knew that was important. I also started reading and learning and talking to people who had experienced loss, and I became a student of people and of these books and of these ways that people have dealt with grief and loss, so that I myself could grieve thoroughly. And yes, it took time. The passage of time also was involved, but it wasn't enough. I needed these other things. I took up grief cycling, a new sport, where on these grief cycle rides, I would cry and I would feel the pleasure of the scenery and meet people and feel the blood flowing through my veins as a healthy way to grieve and to heal. So loss doesn't need to be the end of the story when we grieve thoroughly. Secondly, and the second thing I did is that I embraced life. Didn't just grieve thoroughly, but I also embraced life. There's a quote by an author that I came across. Christina Rasmussen said this. She said, "The longer we have been grieving a loss, the harder it is to start living again. We must invite life and grief to walk hand in hand." And when I read that and I understood the importance of learning to live your life as soon as you can. Now, initially, I was just overwhelmed with sadness, overwhelmed with this fog and the heaviness of my grief and of my loss. But as soon as I was able to, I started to take those baby steps towards life, towards living again. And being okay with those 2 companions walking together on this journey of grief, life and grief, joy and sorrow. One other thing that I did was, in about 3 months after Vicky died, I wrote out a future affirmation statement for myself. It wasn't my reality at that exact moment, but I lived into it, and it went like this: my life is a fun adventure of learning, connecting, and discovery. And I kept that before me throughout the summer, throughout a road trip to Saskatchewan and a long bike trip. And I found life returning to me bit by bit, slowly but surely. So loss doesn't need to be the end of the story. And it wasn't for me as I grieved thoroughly and as I embraced life. And thirdly, I looked for opportunity in my loss. And that helped me not be defined by my loss, but live again. I found opportunity in all kinds of places. I found opportunity in the relationships, in the people in my life, in my family, with my children, and with friends and new friends, and with people that were hurting like I was. I noticed them now. And the opportunity in that was, before that time, I just walked right by and didn't even notice. But because of the empathy that I felt, I could connect with these people and be helpful to them and be empathetic witnesses for them. And that's been a tremendous amount of joy as I've been able to help people who, like me, are on this grief journey. So I don't know about you and in your situation and what you're dealing with right now, but if loss has been something that you have been a companion with, my encouragement for you, my word of hope for you, is that it doesn't need to be the end of the story. As you grieve thoroughly, as you learn to embrace life in the midst of your grief, and as you look for opportunity in your loss, you too, I believe, will find life, will find joy, will find hope, will be able to begin again, even after your loss. I look forward to hearing from you, telling me a little bit of your story of how you have not allowed loss in your life to be the end of your story. Thanks, and have a great day.